Turkey, officially the Republic of Turkey, is a country mainly in Anatolia in West Asia, with a smaller part called East Thrace in southeast Europe. It borders the Black Sea to the north, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Iran to the east, Iraq, Syria, and the Mediterranean Sea and Cyprus to the south, and the Aegean Sea, Greece, and Bulgaria to the west. Turkey is home to over 85 million people, most are ethnic Turks, while ethnic Kurds are the largest ethnic minority. Officially a secular state, Turkey has a Muslim majority population. Ankara is Turkey's capital and second largest city, Istanbul is its largest city, and its economic and financial center, as well as the largest city in Europe. Other major cities include Izmir, Bursa and Antalya. Human habitation began in the late Paleolithic. Home to important Neolithic sites like Göbekli Tepe and some of the earliest farming areas, present-day Turkey was inhabited by various ancient peoples. Hattians were assimilated by the incoming Anatolian peoples. Increasing diversity during classical Anatolia transitioned into cultural Hellenization following the conquests of Alexander the Great. Hellenization continued during the Roman and Byzantine eras. The Seljuk Turks began migrating into Anatolia in the 11th century, starting the Turkification process. The Seljuk Sultanate of Rum ruled Anatolia until the Mongol invasion in 1243, when it disintegrated into Turkish principalities. Beginning in 1299, the Ottomans united the principalities and expanded. Mehmed II conquered Istanbul in 1453. During the reigns of Selim I and Suleiman the Magnificent, the Ottoman Empire became a global power. From 1789 onwards, the empire saw major transformation, reforms, and centralization while its territory declined. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, persecution of Muslims during the Ottoman contraction and in the Russian Empire resulted in large-scale loss of life and mass migration into modern-day Turkey from the Balkans, Caucasus, and Crimea. Under the control of the three Pashas, the Ottoman Empire entered World War I in 1914, during which the Ottoman government committed genocides against its Armenian, Greek and Assyrian subjects. After its defeat, the Ottoman Empire was partitioned. The Turkish War of Independence resulted in the abolition of the Sultanate in 1922 and the signing of the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923. The Republic was proclaimed on October 29, 1923, modeled on the reforms initiated by the country's first president, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Turkey remained neutral during most of World War II, but was involved in the Korean War. Coups in 1960 and 1980 interrupted the transition to a multi-party system. Turkey is an upper-middle income and emerging country. Its economy is the 18th or 11th largest in the world. It is a unitary presidential republic. Turkey is a founding member of the OECD, G20, an organization of Turkic states. With a geopolitically significant location, Turkey is a regional power and an early member of NATO. An EU candidate, Turkey is part of the EU Customs Union, OIC, and Turksoy. Turkey has coastal plains, a high central plateau, and various mountain ranges. Its climate is temperate with harsher conditions in the interior. Home to 3 biodiversity hotspots, Turkey is prone to frequent earthquakes and is highly vulnerable to climate change. Turkey has universal health care, growing access to education, and increasing innovativeness. It is a leading TV content exporter. With 21 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, 30 UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage inscriptions, and a rich and diverse cuisine, Turkey is the 4th most visited country in the world. Name. The name Turkey appears in Western sources after the late 11th century, referring to the Seljuk-controlled lands in Anatolia and the Near East. European writers started using Turkey for the Anatolian plateau by the end of the 12th century. The English name Turkey from medieval Latin Turkia means land of the Turks. Middle English usage of Turkey is evidenced in Geoffrey Chaucer's The Book of the Duchess. The modern spelling Turkey dates back to at least 1719. The name Turkey has been used in the texts of numerous international treaties to define the Ottoman Empire. In Byzantine sources, the name Turkiye was used for defining two medieval states, Hungary and Hazaria. With the Treaty of Alexandropol, the name Turkey entered international documents for the first time. In the treaty signed with Afghanistan in 1921, the expression Devleti Ali Turki was used, likened to the Ottoman Empire's name. In December 2021, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan issued a circular, calling for exports to be labeled Made in Turkey. The circular also stated that in relation to other governmental communications, the necessary sensitivity will be shown on the use of the phrase Turkey instead of phrases such as Turkey. The reason given was that Turkey represents and expresses the culture, civilization, and values of the Turkish nation in the best way. In May 2022, the Turkish government requested the United Nations and other international organizations to use Turkey officially in English, which the UN immediately agreed to do. History. Prehistory of Anatolia and Eastern Thrace. The Anatolian Peninsula, comprising most of modern Turkey, has been inhabited by modern humans since the late Paleolithic period. The European part of Turkey, called Eastern Thrace, has been inhabited since at least 40,000 years ago and is known to have been in the Neolithic era by about 6000 BC. The spread of agriculture from the Middle East to Europe was strongly correlated with the migration of early farmers from Anatolia about 9,000 years ago and was not just a cultural exchange. Anatolian Neolithic farmers derived a significant portion of their ancestry from the Anatolian hunter-gatherers. Present-day Turkey contains some of the world's oldest Neolithic sites. Göbekli Tepe is the site of the oldest known man-made structure in the world, a temple dating to c. 9600 BC, while Çatalhöyük is a very large Neolithic and Chalcolithic settlement in Anatolia, which existed c. 7500, c. 5700 BC. It is the largest and best preserved Neolithic site found to date. The Urfa man statue is dated c. 9000 BC, to the period of the pre-pottery Neolithic, and is defined as the oldest known naturalistic life-sized sculpture of a human. Troy was first settled in the Neolithic age, with habitation continuing into the Byzantine period. Troy's late Bronze Age layers are considered potential historical settings for the later legends of the Trojan War. The earliest recorded inhabitants of Anatolia were the Hattians and Hurrians, non-Indo-European peoples who lived in Anatolia as early as c. 2300 BC. Indo-European Hittites came to Anatolia and gradually absorbed the Hattians and Hurrians c. 2000, c. 1700 BC. Various other ancient Anatolian populations have also lived in Anatolia, from at least the Neolithic until the Hellenistic period. Many of these peoples spoke the Anatolian languages, a branch of the larger Indo-European language family. Given the antiquity of the Indo-European Hittite and Luwian languages, some scholars have proposed Anatolia as the hypothetical center from which the Indo-European languages radiated. The first empire in the area was founded by the Hittites, from the 18th through the 13th centuries BC. The Assyrians conquered and settled parts of southeastern Turkey as early as 1950 BC, although they have remained a minority in the region. Following the collapse of the Hittite Empire c. 1180 BC, the Phrygians, an Indo-European people, achieved ascendancy in Anatolia until their kingdom was destroyed by the Cimmerians in c. 695 BC. The most powerful of Phrygia's successor states were Lydia, Caria, and Lycia. Assyrian king Shalmaneser I recorded a campaign in which he subdued the entire territory of Uruatri. Urartu re-emerged in Assyrian inscriptions in the 9th century BC. Starting from 714 BC, the Urartu state began to decline and finally dissolved in 590 BC when it was conquered by the Medes. Antiquity. Before 1200 BC, there were 4 Greek-speaking settlements in Anatolia, including Miletus. Around 1000 BC, Greek migrations to the west coast of Anatolia began. Influence of Greek communities were largely limited to these areas until the time of Alexander the Great. These settlements were grouped as Aeolis, Ionia, and Doris, after the specific Greek groups that settled them. Numerous important cities were founded by these colonists, such as Ephesus, Halicarnassus, Pergamon, Aphrodisias, Smyrna, and Byzantium, the latter founded by Greek colonists from Megara in c. 667 BC. Some of these cities, in particular Miletus, went on to found numerous colonies of their own on the coasts of the Black Sea. Miletus was also home to the Ionian school of philosophy, and many of the most prominent pre-Socratic philosophers lived in Miletus. Thales of Miletus is regarded as the first philosopher in the Greek tradition and is also historically recognized as the first individual known to have engaged in scientific philosophy. 2 of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus, and the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, were located in Anatolia. The Armenian Orontid dynasty, which included parts of what is now eastern Turkey, began in the 6th century BC. In northwestern Turkey, the most significant tribal group in ancient Thrace was the Odirasians, founded by Teres I. All of modern-day Turkey was conquered by the Persian Achaemenid Empire during the 6th century BC. The Greco-Persian Wars started when the Greek city-states on the coast of Anatolia rebelled against Persian rule in 499 BC. Queen Artemisia I of Halicarnassus, which was then within the Achaemenid satrapy of Caria, fought as an ally of Xerxes I, king of Persia, against the independent Greek city-states during the Second Persian invasion of Greece in 480 BC. Anatolia fell to Alexander the Great in 334 BC, which led to increasing cultural homogeneity and Hellenization in the area, which met resistance in some places. Following Alexander's death in 323 BC, Anatolia was subsequently divided into smaller Hellenistic kingdoms, all of which became part of the Roman Republic by the mid-1st century BC. Hellenization accelerated under Roman rule, and by the early centuries of the Christian era the local Anatolian languages and cultures had become extinct, being largely replaced by ancient Greek language and culture. From the 1st century BC up to the 3rd century AD, large parts of modern-day Turkey were contested between the Romans and neighboring Parthians through the Roman-Parthian Wars. Galatia was an ancient area in the highlands of central Anatolia inhabited by the Celts. The term Galatians came to be used by the Greeks for the 3 Celtic peoples of Anatolia, the Tectosages, the Trochmai, and the Talistobagii. By the 1st century BC the Celts had become so Hellenized that some Greek writers called them Hellenogalatai. The kingdom of Pontus was a Hellenistic kingdom, centered in the historical region of Pontus and ruled by the Mithridatic dynasty of Persian origin, which may have been directly related to Darius the Great. The kingdom was proclaimed by Mithridates I in 281 BC and lasted until its conquest by the Romans in 63 BC. Pontus reached its largest extent under Mithridates VI the Great, who conquered Colchis, Cappadocia, Bithynia, and the Greek colonies of the Tauric Chersonesos. After a long struggle with Rome in the Mithridatic Wars, Pontus was defeated. All ancient regions and territories corresponding to modern Turkey eventually became part of the Roman Empire, and many of them retain their historic names in classical antiquity as Roman provinces. Early Christian and Roman period. According to the Acts of Apostles, Antioch, a city in southern Turkey, is where the followers of Jesus were first called Christians. The city quickly became an important center of Christianity. The Apostle Paul of Tarsus traveled to Ephesus and stayed there, probably working as a tent maker. He is claimed to have performed miracles and organized missionary activity in other regions. Paul left Ephesus after an attack from a local silversmith resulted in a pro-Artemis riot. According to extra-biblical traditions, the Assumption of Mary took place in Ephesus, where Apostle John was also present. Irenaeus writes of the Church of Ephesus, founded by Paul, with John continuing with them until the times of Trajan. While in Ephesus, Apostle John wrote the 3 epistles attributed to him. The Basilica of St. John near Ephesus, built by Justinian the Great in the 6th century, marks the burial site of Apostle John, while the nearby house of the Virgin Mary is accepted by the Catholic Church as the place where Mary, Mother of Jesus, lived the final days of her life before her Assumption. Saint Nicholas, born in Patara, lived in nearby Myra in Lycia. In 123, Roman Emperor Hadrian traveled to Anatolia. Numerous monuments were erected for his arrival, and he met his lover Antinous from Bithynia. Hadrian focused on the Greek revival and built several temples and improved the cities. Cyzicus, Pergamon, Smyrna, Ephesus, and Sardes were promoted as regional centers for the imperial cult during this period. Byzantine period. After defeating Licinius at the Battle of Chrysopolis in 324, Constantine the Great chose the nearby city of Byzantium as the new capital of the Roman Empire and started rebuilding and expanding the city. In 330 he officially proclaimed it as the new Roman capital with the name New Rome, but soon afterwards renamed it Constantinople. Under Constantine, Christianity did not become the official religion of the state, but Christianity enjoyed imperial preference since he supported it with generous privileges. Theodosius the Great made Christianity the official state religion of the Roman Empire with the Edict of Thessalonica in 380. Following the death of Theodosius in 395 and the permanent division of the Roman Empire between his 2 sons, Constantinople became the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. This empire, which would later be branded by historians as the Byzantine Empire, ruled most of the territory of present-day Turkey until the late Middle Ages, although the eastern regions remained firmly in Sasanian hands until the 7th century. The frequent Byzantine-Sassanid wars, a continuation of the centuries-long Roman-Persian wars, took place between the 4th and 7th centuries. Several ecumenical councils of the early church were held in cities located in present-day Turkey, including the First Council of Nicaea in 325, which resulted in the first uniform Christian doctrine, called the Nicene Creed, the First Council of Constantinople in 381, the Council of Ephesus in 431, and the Council of Chalcedon in 451. During most of its existence, the Byzantine Empire was one of the most powerful economic, cultural, and military forces in Europe. Established in the Roman period, the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople is the oldest continuously active institution in Istanbul. Seljuk and Anatolian Beyliks period. According to historians and linguists, the Proto-Turkic language originated in Central East Asia. Initially, Proto-Turkic speakers were potentially both hunter-gatherers and farmers. They later became nomadic pastoralists. Early and medieval Turkic groups exhibited a wide range of both East Asian and West Eurasian physical appearances and genetic origins, in part through long-term contact with neighboring peoples such as Iranic, Mongolic, Tocharian, Uralic, and Yeniseian peoples. During the 9th and 10th centuries CE, the Oghuz were a Turkic group that lived in the Caspian and Aral steppes. Partly due to pressure from the Kipchuks, the Oghuz migrated into Iran and Transoxiana. They mixed with Iranic-speaking groups in the area and converted to Islam. Oghuz Turks were also known as Turkoman. The Seljuks originated from the Kinnik branch of the Oghuz Turks who resided in the Yabgu Khaganate. In 1040, the Seljuks defeated the Ghaznavids at the Battle of Dandanakan and established the Seljuk Empire in Greater Khorasan. Baghdad, the Abbasid Caliphate's capital and center of the Islamic world, was taken by Seljuks in 1055. Given the role Khurasani traditions played in art, culture, and political traditions in the empire, the Seljuk period is described as a mixture of Turkish, Persian, and Islamic influences. In the latter half of the 11th century, the Seljuk Turks began penetrating into medieval Armenia and Anatolia. At the time, Anatolia was a diverse and largely Greek-speaking region after previously being Hellenized. The Seljuk Turks defeated the Byzantines at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071, and later established the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum. During this period, there were also Turkish principalities such as Danish Mendids. Seljuk arrival started the Turkification process in Anatolia. There were Turkic-Turkish migrations, intermarriages, and conversions into Islam. The shift took several centuries and happened gradually. Members of Islamic mysticism orders, such as Mevlevi order, played a role in the Islamization of the diverse people of Anatolia. In 13th century, there was a second significant wave of Turkic migration, as people fled Mongol expansion. Seljuk Sultanate was defeated by the Mongols at the Battle of Kozdag in 1243 and disappeared by the beginning of the 14th century. It was replaced by various Turkish principalities. Ottoman Empire. Based around Sogut, Ottoman Beylik was founded by Osman I in the early 14th century. According to Ottoman chroniclers, Osman descended from the Kai tribe of the Oghuz Turks. Ottomans started annexing the nearby Turkish beyliks in Anatolia and expanded into the Balkans. Mehmed II completed Ottoman conquest of the Byzantine Empire by capturing its capital, Constantinople, on May 29, 1453. Selim I united Anatolia under Ottoman rule. Turkification continued as Ottomans mixed with various indigenous people in Anatolia and the Balkans. The Ottoman Empire was a global power during the reigns of Selim I and Suleiman the Magnificent. In the 16th and 17th centuries, Sephardic Jews moved into Ottoman Empire following their expulsion from Spain. From the second half of the 18th century onwards, the Ottoman Empire began to decline. The Tanzimat reforms, initiated by Mahmud II in 1839, aimed to modernize the Ottoman state in line with the progress that had been made in Western Europe. The Ottoman Constitution of 1876 was the first among Muslim states, but was short-lived. As the empire gradually shrank in size, military power, and wealth, especially after the Ottoman economic crisis and default in 1875, which led to uprisings in the Balkan provinces that culminated in the Russo-Turkish War, many Balkan Muslims migrated to the empire's heartland in Anatolia, along with the Circassians fleeing the Russian conquest of the Caucasus. According to some estimates, 800,000 Muslim Circassians died during the Circassian genocide in the territory of present-day Russia, the survivors of which sought refuge in the Ottoman Empire, mostly settling in the provinces of present-day Turkey. The decline of the Ottoman Empire led to a rise in nationalist sentiment among its various subject peoples, leading to increased ethnic tensions which occasionally burst into violence, such as the Hamidian massacres of Armenians, which claimed up to 300,000 lives. Ottoman territories in Europe were lost in the First Balkan War. Ottomans managed to recover some territory in Europe, such as Edirne, in the Second Balkan War. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, persecution of Muslims during the Ottoman contraction and in the Russian Empire resulted in estimated 5 million deaths, with more than 3 million in Balkans. The casualties included Turks. 5 to 7 or 7 to 9 million refugees migrated into modern-day Turkey from the Balkans, Caucasus, Crimea, and Mediterranean islands, shifting the center of the Ottoman Empire to Anatolia. In addition to a small number of Jews, the refugees were overwhelmingly Muslim. They were both Turkish and non-Turkish people, such as Circassians and Crimean Tatars. Paul Mojazes has called the Balkan Wars an unrecognized genocide, where multiple sides were both victims and perpetrators. Following the 1913 coup d'état, the three pashas took control of the Ottoman government. The Ottoman Empire entered World War I on the side of the Central Powers and was ultimately defeated. During the war, the empire's Armenian subjects were deported to Syria as part of the Armenian genocide. As a result, an estimated 600,000 to more than 1 million, or up to 1.5 million Armenians were killed. The Turkish government has refused to acknowledge the events as genocide and states that Armenians were only relocated from the eastern war zone. Genocidal campaigns were also committed against the empire's other minority groups such as the Assyrians and Greeks. Following the Armistice of Montrose in 1918, the victorious Allied powers sought the partition of the Ottoman Empire through the 1920 Treaty of Sèvres. Republic of Turkey. The occupation of Istanbul in 1918 and Izmir in 1919 by the Allies in the aftermath of World War I initiated the Turkish national movement. Under the leadership of Mustafa Kemal Pasha, a military commander who had distinguished himself during the Battle of Gallipoli, the Turkish War of Independence was waged with the aim of revoking the terms of the Treaty of Sèvres. The Turkish Provisional Government in Ankara, which had declared itself the legitimate government of the country on April 23, 1920, started to formalize the legal transition from the old Ottoman into the new republican political system. The Ankara government engaged in armed and diplomatic struggle. In 1921 to 1923, the Armenian, Greek, French, and British armies had been expelled. The military advance and diplomatic success of the Ankara government resulted in the signing of the Armistice of Mudanya on October 11, 1922. The handling of the Çanak crisis between the United Kingdom and the Ankara government caused the collapse of David Lloyd George's ministry on October 19, 1922 and political autonomy of Canada from the UK. On November 1, 1922, the Turkish parliament in Ankara formally abolished the Sultanate, thus ending 623 years of monarchical Ottoman rule. The Treaty of Lausanne of July 24, 1923, which superseded the Treaty of Sèvres, led to the international recognition of the sovereignty of the new Turkish state as the successor state of the Ottoman Empire. On October 4, 1923, the Allied occupation of Turkey ended with the withdrawal of the last Allied troops from Istanbul. The Turkish Republic was officially proclaimed on October 29, 1923 in Ankara, the country's new capital. The Lausanne Convention stipulated a population exchange between Greece and Turkey. Mustafa Kemal became the Republic's first president and introduced many reforms. The reforms aimed to transform the old religion-based and multi-communal Ottoman monarchy into a Turkish nation-state that would be governed as a parliamentary republic under a secular constitution. With the surname law of 1934, the Turkish parliament bestowed upon Kemal the honorific surname Atatürk. Atatürk's reforms caused discontent in some Kurdish and Zaza tribes, leading to the Sheikh Said Rebellion in 1925 and the Dersim Rebellion in 1937. İsmet İnönü became the country's second president following Atatürk's death in 1938. In 1939, the Republic of Hatay voted in favor of joining Turkey with the referendum. Turkey remained neutral during most of World War II but entered the war on the side of the Allies on February 23, 1945. Later that year, Turkey became a charter member of the United Nations. In 1950 Turkey became a member of the Council of Europe. After fighting as part of the UN forces in the Korean War, Turkey joined NATO in 1952, becoming a bulwark against Soviet expansion into the Mediterranean. The country's transition to multi-party democracy was interrupted by military coups in 1960 and 1980, as well as by military memorandums in 1971 and 1997. Between 1960 and the end of the 20th century, the prominent leaders in Turkish politics who achieved multiple election victories were Süleyman Demirel, Bülent Ecevit, and Turgut Özal. Tansu Çiller became the first female prime minister of Turkey in 1993. Turkey entered EU Customs Union in 1995 and started accession negotiations with EU in 2005. Customs Union had an important impact on the Turkish manufacturing sector. In 2014, Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan won Turkey's first direct presidential election. On July 15, 2016, an unsuccessful coup attempt tried to oust the government. With the referendum in 2017, the parliamentary republic was replaced by an executive presidential system. The office of the Prime Minister was abolished, and its powers and duties were transferred to the President. On the referendum day, while the voting was still underway, the Supreme Electoral Council lifted a rule that required each ballot to have an official stamp. The opposition parties claimed that as many as 2.5 million ballots without a stamp were accepted as valid. Administrative divisions. Turkey has a unitary structure in terms of public administration, and the provinces are subordinate to the central government in Ankara. In province centers the government is represented by the province governors and in towns by the governors. Other senior public officials are also appointed by the central government, except for the mayors who are elected by the constituents. Turkish municipalities have local legislative bodies for decision-making on municipal issues. Turkey is subdivided into 81 provinces for administrative purposes. Each province is divided into districts, for a total of 973 districts. Turkey is also subdivided into 7 regions and 21 subregions for geographic, demographic and economic measurements, surveys, and classifications. This does not refer to an administrative division. Government and politics. Turkey is a presidential republic within a multi-party system. The current constitution was approved by referendum in 1982, which determines the government's structure, lays forth the ideals and standards of the state's conduct, and sets out the state's responsibility to its citizens. Furthermore, the Constitution specifies the people's rights and obligations, as well as principles for the delegation and exercise of sovereignty that belongs to the people of Turkey. Turkish politics have become increasingly associated with democratic backsliding, being described as a competitive authoritarian system. In the Turkish unitary system, citizens are subject to 3 levels of government: national, provincial, and local. The local government's duties are commonly split between municipal governments and districts, in which the executive and legislative officials are elected by a plurality vote of citizens by district. The government comprises 3 branches. First is legislative branch, which is Grand National Assembly of Turkey. Second is executive branch, which is the President of Turkey, and third is the judicial branch, which includes the Constitutional Court, the Court of Cassation and Court of Jurisdictional Disputes. The Parliament has 600 voting members, each representing a constituency for a 5-year term. Parliamentary seats are distributed among the provinces proportionally to the population. The president is elected by direct vote and serves a 5-year term. The president cannot run for re-election after 2 terms of 5 years, unless the parliament prematurely renews the presidential elections during the 2nd term. Elections for the parliament and presidential elections are held on the same day. The Constitutional Court is composed of 15 members. A member is elected for a term of 12 years and cannot be re-elected. The members of the Constitutional Court are obliged to retire when they are over the age of 65. Parties and elections. Elections in Turkey are held for 6 functions of government: presidential elections, parliamentary elections, municipality mayors, district mayors, provincial or municipal council members and mitars. Apart from elections, referendums are also held occasionally. Every Turkish citizen who has turned 18 has the right to vote and stand as a candidate at elections. Universal suffrage for both sexes has been applied throughout Turkey since 1934. In Turkey, turnout rates of both local and general elections are high compared to many other countries, which usually stands higher than 80%. The Constitutional Court can strip the public financing of political parties that it deems anti-secular or having ties to terrorism, or ban their existence altogether. The electoral threshold for political parties at national level is 7% of the votes. Smaller parties can avoid the electoral threshold by forming an alliance with other parties. Independent candidates are not subject to an electoral threshold. On the right side of the Turkish political spectrum, parties like the Democrat Party, Justice Party, Motherland Party, and Justice and Development Party became the most popular political parties in Turkey, winning numerous elections. Turkish right-wing parties are more likely to embrace the principles of political ideologies such as conservatism, nationalism, or Islamism. On the left side of the spectrum, parties like the Republican People's Party, Social Democratic Populist Party and Democratic Left Party once enjoyed the largest electoral success. Left-wing parties are more likely to embrace the principles of socialism, Kemalism, or secularism. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, winner of the 2023 presidential election, is currently serving as the head of state and head of government. Özgür Özel is the main opposition leader. Numan Kurtulmuş is the Speaker of the Grand National Assembly. The 2023 parliamentary election resulted in the 28th Parliament of Turkey, which had an initial composition of 268 seats for the Justice and Development Party, 169 seats for the Republican People's Party, 61 seats for the Party of Greens and the Left Future, 50 seats for the Nationalist Movement Party, 43 seats for the Good Party, 5 seats for the New Welfare Party and 4 seats for the Workers' Party of Turkey. The next parliamentary election is scheduled to take place in 2028. Law. With the founding of the Republic, Turkey adopted a civil law legal system, replacing Sharia-derived Ottoman law. The Civil Code, adopted in 1926, was based on the Swiss Civil Code of 1907 and the Swiss Code of Obligations of 1911. Although it underwent a number of changes in 2002, it retains much of the basis of the original code. The Criminal Code, originally based on the Italian Criminal Code, was replaced in 2005 by a code with principles similar to the German Penal Code and German law generally. Administrative law is based on the French equivalent, and procedural law generally shows the influence of the Swiss, German, and French legal systems. Islamic principles do not play a part in the legal system. Law enforcement in Turkey is carried out by several agencies under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. These agencies are the General Directorate of Security, the Gendarmerie General Command and the Coast Guard Command. In the years of government by the Justice and Development Party and Erdogan, particularly since 2013, the independence and integrity of the Turkish judiciary has increasingly been said to be in doubt by institutions, parliamentarians, and journalists both within and outside of Turkey, because of political interference in the promotion of judges and prosecutors and in their pursuit of public duty. Foreign relations. In line with its traditional Western orientation, relations with Europe have always been a central part of Turkish foreign policy. Turkey became one of the early members of the Council of Europe in 1950. Turkey applied for full membership of the EEC in 1987, joined the European Union Customs Union in 1995 and started accession negotiations with the European Union in 2005. In a non-binding vote on March 13, 2019, the European Parliament called on the EU governments to suspend EU accession talks with Turkey, citing violations of human rights and the rule of law, but the negotiations, effectively on hold since 2018, remain active as of 2023. The other defining aspect of Turkey's foreign policy has been the country's long-standing strategic alliance with the United States. The Truman Doctrine in 1947 enunciated American intentions to guarantee the security of Turkey and Greece during the Cold War, and resulted in large-scale U.S. military and economic support. In 1948 both countries were included in the Marshall Plan and the OEEC for rebuilding European economies. The common threat posed by the Soviet Union during the Cold War led to Turkey's membership of NATO in 1952, ensuring close bilateral relations with the US. Subsequently, Turkey benefited from the United States' political, economic, and diplomatic support, including in key issues such as the country's bid to join the European Union. In the post-Cold War environment, Turkey's geostrategic importance shifted towards its proximity to the Middle East, the Caucasus, and the Balkans. The independence of the Turkic states of the Soviet Union in 1991, with which Turkey shares a common cultural, historic, and linguistic heritage, allowed Turkey to extend its economic and political relations deep into Central Asia. The International Organization of Turkic Culture was established in 1993, and the Organization of Turkic States was established in 2009. Under the AKP government, Turkey's economy has grown rapidly and the country's influence has grown in the Middle East based on a strategic depth doctrine, also called Neo-Ottomanism. Following the Arab Spring in December 2010, the choices made by the government for supporting certain political opposition groups in the affected countries have led to tensions with some Arab states, such as Turkey's neighbor Syria since the start of the Syrian civil war, and Egypt after the ousting of President Mohamed Morsi. As of 2022, Turkey does not have an ambassador in either Syria or Egypt, but relations with both countries have started to improve. Diplomatic relations with Israel were also severed after the Gaza flotilla raid in 2010 but were normalized following a deal in June 2016. These political rifts have left Turkey with few allies in the East Mediterranean, where large natural gas fields have recently been discovered. There is a dispute over Turkey's maritime boundaries with Greece and Cyprus and drilling rights in the Eastern Mediterranean. After the rapprochement with Russia in 2016, Turkey revised its stance regarding the solution of the conflict in Syria. In January 2018, the Turkish military and the Turkish-backed forces, including the Syrian National Army, began an operation in Syria aimed at ousting US-backed YPG from the enclave of Afrin. Turkey has also conducted airstrikes in Iraqi Kurdistan which have strained Turkey-Iraq relations as the latter has criticized the strikes for violating its sovereignty and killing civilians. Military. The Turkish armed forces consist of the General Staff, the Land Forces, the Naval Forces and the Air Force. The Chief of the General Staff is appointed by the President. The President is responsible to the Parliament for matters of national security and the adequate preparation of the armed forces to defend the country. However, the authority to declare war and to deploy the Turkish armed forces to foreign countries or to allow foreign armed forces to be stationed in Turkey rests solely with the Parliament. The Gendarmerie General Command and the Coast Guard Command are under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of the Interior. Every fit male Turkish citizen otherwise not barred is required to serve in the military for a period ranging from 3 weeks to a year, dependent on education and job location. Turkey does not recognize conscientious objection and does not offer a civilian alternative to military service. Turkey has the second largest standing military force in NATO, after the United States, with an estimated strength of 890,700 military personnel as of February 2022. Turkey is one of 5 NATO member states which are part of the nuclear sharing policy of the alliance, together with Belgium, Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands. A total of 90 B-61 nuclear bombs are hosted at the Incirlik Air Base, 40 of which are allocated for use by the Turkish Air Force in case of a nuclear conflict, but their use requires the approval of NATO. The Turkish armed forces have a relatively substantial military presence abroad, with military bases in Albania, Iraq, Qatar, and Somalia. The country also maintains a force of 36,000 troops in northern Cyprus since 1974. Turkey has participated in international missions under the United Nations and NATO since the Korean War, including peacekeeping missions in Somalia, Yugoslavia, and the Horn of Africa. It supported coalition forces in the First Gulf War, contributed military personnel to the International Security Assistance Force in Afghanistan, and remains active in Kosovo Force, Eurocorps, and EU battle groups. In recent years, Turkey has assisted Peshmerga forces in northern Iraq and the Somali armed forces with security and training. Economy. Turkey is an upper-middle-income country and an emerging market. A founding member of the OECD and G20, it is the 18th largest economy in the world by nominal GDP, and the 11th largest by PPP. It is classified among newly industrialized countries. Turkey is a diversified economy. Main industries include automobiles, electronics, textiles, construction, steel, mining, and food processing. Services account for the majority of GDP, whereas industry accounts for more than 30%. Agriculture contributes about 7%. According to IMF estimates, Turkey's GDP per capita by PPP is 42,064 in 2023, while its nominal GDP per capita is 13,000. Between 2007 and 2021, the share of population below the PPP 6.85 per day international poverty threshold declined from 20% to 8%. In 2023, 14% of the population was below the national at-risk of poverty rate. In 2021, 34% of the population were at risk of poverty or social exclusion, using Eurostat definition. Unemployment in Turkey was 10% in 2022. In 2021, it was estimated that 47% of total disposable income was received by the top 20% of income earners, while the lowest 20% received only 6%. Turkey is the 13th largest motor vehicle producer in the world. Turkish automotive companies include Temsa, Otokar, BMC, and TOG. TOG is the first all-electric vehicle company of Turkey. Arçelik, Vestel, and Beko are major manufacturers of consumer electronics. Arçelik is one of the largest producers of household goods in the world. Turkey is the 8th largest crude steel producer and the 13th largest shipbuilder in the world. In 2022, Turkey ranked second in the world in terms of the number of international contractors in top 250 list. It is also the fifth largest in the world in terms of textile exports. Foreign direct investment in Turkey peaked at 22.05 billion in 2007 and dropped to 13.09 billion in 2022. Tourism accounts for about 8% of Turkey's GDP. In 2022, Turkey ranked fourth in the world in terms of the number of international tourist arrivals with 50.5 million foreign tourists. Turkey has 21 UNESCO World Heritage Sites and 84 World Heritage Sites in tentative list. Turkey is home to 519 blue flag beaches, third most in the world. According to Euromonitor International report, Istanbul is the most visited city in the world, with more than 20.2 million foreign visitors in 2023. Also, Antalya has surpassed Paris and New York to become the fourth most visited city in the world, with more than 16.5 million foreign visitors. Religion. Turkey is a secular state with no official state religion. The constitution provides for freedom of religion and conscience. A 2016 survey by Ipsos, interviewing 17,180 adults across 22 countries, found that Islam was the dominant religion in Turkey, adhered to by 82% of the total population. Religiously unaffiliated people comprised 13% of the population, while 2% were Christians. The level of religiosity study by Conda found 10% of the population who are fully devoted, 52% who strives to fulfill religious obligations, 34% who does not fulfill religious obligations, and 3.2% non-believer irreligious. Another poll conducted by Gazetesi Araştırma in 2020 interviewed 1,062 people in 12 provinces and found that 28.5% of the Generation Z identify as irreligious. According to a survey by the pollster Conda, the percentage of atheists in Turkey has tripled in 10 years and rose from 1% in 2008 to 3% in 2018. The percentage of non-believers or agnostics rose from 1% to 2%, and that 90% of irreligious Turks were under 35 years old. The CIA World Factbook reports that Islam is the religion of 99.8% of the population, with Sunni Muslims as the largest sect, while 0.2% are Christians or Jews. However, there are no official governmental statistics specifying the religious beliefs of the Turkish people, nor is religious data recorded in the country's census. Academics suggest the Alevi population may be from 15 to 20 million, while the Alevi Beta C Federation states that there are around 25 million. According to Aksiyon magazine, the number of 12 Shias excluding Alevis is 3 million. The percentage of Christians in Turkey fell from 17.5% in a population of 16 million to 2.5% in the early 20th century. Mainly as a result of the Armenian genocide, the population exchange between Greece and Turkey, and the emigration of Christians that began in the late 19th century and gained pace in the first quarter of the 20th century. Today, there are more than 120,000 to 320,000 people of various Christian denominations, representing less than 0.2% of Turkey's population, including an estimated 80,000 Oriental Orthodox, 35,000 Roman Catholics, 18,000 Antiochian Greeks, 5,000 Greek Orthodox, smaller numbers of Protestants, and 512 Mormons. Currently, there are 398 churches open for worship in Turkey. Turkey has a small Jewish population, with around 26,000 Jews, the vast majority of whom are Sephardi. Turkey has the largest Jewish community among the Muslim-majority countries. In a mid-2010s poll, 2.9% of Turkish respondents identified as atheists. The Association of Atheism, the first official atheist organization in the Balkans and the Middle East, was founded in 2014. Some religious and secular officials have claimed that atheism and deism are growing among Turkish people. Culture. Turkey has a very diverse culture that is a blend of various elements of the Turkic, Anatolian, Byzantine, and Ottoman cultures with Western culture and traditions, a process that started with the westernization of the Ottoman Empire and still continues today. This mix originally began as a result of the encounter of the Turks and their culture with those of the peoples they came across during their migration from Central Asia to the West.